Right, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to Oven's Garage. Today is going to be the big day that we start installing the intercooler. Now, I'm not sure whether or not it's going to take me one day. It might take me 2 days. I'm pretty picky, so I like to take my time with things. I'm now at the point where I've got a bit of time to do this, and I've got all the parts now after ordering a few, and I'm ready to get started on this thing. So what I'll do is I'll put in the description box a really comprehensive list of all the parts that I use to do this swap. And I'll run you through some of them now, but just in case I'm missing anything, like some of the hardware bits, I'll do a complete detailed list in the description box below. The parts that you're going to need, obviously the intercooler, and then the intercooler for the 7.3 has the 3-inch inlet and outlet. So you'll need, if you want to bump up to 3-inch lines, the stock first gen lines have 2.5-inch lines. You'll need 3-inch, I'm using aluminum tubes. I've got a 3-inch straight tube and then a 3-inch 45 tube. One that goes from the turbo to the intercooler, and then the other one that goes from the intercooler up to the intake elbow. So to attach these guys, you'll need two 3-inch silicone intake boots with associated clamps. I'm using all stainless spring clamps on mine. I got these silicone boots from Vibrant Performance, and then these tubes from I think it was siliconeintakes.com or something like that. Either way, I'll put it in the description box below. So that's for the intercooler there. So coming off the turbo, you need this 45. This bumps up right from the V-band on the turbo to the 3-inch line after the elbow. So instead of using the stock elbow, you use this elbow, and then you can clamp right on there with a 3-inch coupler. I needed to get this 1/8-inch NPT plug because this came from Cummins without an NPT plug in there. Now when I go to do my turbo exhaust housing, I'll probably take that off and then use an 1/8-inch NPT to hose 1/4-inch hose barb, and then run that back to the wastegate, which is here. From the compressor side and then up to the intake, you'll need 2 couplers and associated hose clamps. This is a 24 valve intake horn, so it's got a little bit more volume flow compared to the stock first gen intake horn, which is a 2.5-inch inlet here. So this is a 3-inch inlet, and then this will mate up perfectly there. You'll need your hardware associated with the intake horn, which is M8 by 1.25 by 80 and by 160 bolts that have hex flange cap heads, or in this case I'm using these studs, and I'm going to cut these down a bit more. I threaded these down a bit so that way they were the right lengths. You'll need 2 of these intake horn gaskets, one for underneath the grid heater and above the grid heater, and then you'll need this O-ring to go along with the new intake elbow, just to put a new O-ring on there. And then I'm planning on using these rubber bushings to mount the intercooler somehow. So the only thing that I don't have shown here is the hardware on how I'm going to mount the intercooler to the core support of the truck. I've got some varying length of bolts and nuts that I might use. My plan is to mount the AC condenser right to the core support, and then put the intercooler in front of it. So I might need some I might have to run to the store to grab some hardware, some new hardware to mount those properly. So all right, let's get started on this. I'm going to take the whole front of the truck apart. Basically, I'm going to pull the bumper off, I'm going to pull the grille off, and then there's a front valence piece, and then that'll give me full access to the front there, and then we can start ripping things apart and then fitting this bad boy in there. All right, I forgot to mention here, I got this, this is called premium neoprene rubber, and then I got these brackets just from Canadian Tire, as well as this flat plate stock. My plan for that is I want to use it somehow, either that or that somehow, to make a mount for the bottom of the intercooler, and then I'm going to use bolts up here and then cut this down a bit. So that's why I got that, and then that to insulate the intercooler from the vibrations of the truck. I've got the bumper, the grille, and the front valance off. There was a front, I guess, hood latch support here as well that had to come off. And so this is the AC condenser, and then the intercooler is just behind it. If you can see it there. So I'm gonna go ahead and pop the AC condenser off, and then I have to keep in mind there's these two lines here I don't want to bend or crack open, and then I can start to pull the intercooler off. Okay, to give myself a bit of room with the AC condenser lines, I'm gonna pull my intake off. All right, now I'm gonna go ahead and pull the V-band clamp off the end of the turbo outlet, and then I'll start pulling the boot off of the end of the intercooler here. Now I'm going to take a clean towel and just put it in the outlet of the turbo. Make sure nothing, no debris gets in there. Okay, and now we're going to take the driver's side boot off. All right, now that the passenger side and the driver's side tubes are off, I'm going to go ahead and take off the old stock first gen intake horn. It's a 10mm socket. Okay, and now I've got the first gen intake horn off. I'm gonna have to get one more gasket here. I actually only had one in the shop, so just note there, if you've got you know, any sort of flaking like that or along here, you're gonna have to pull this old intake gasket off and then replace it. Now that I've got those tubes off, I can pull the AC condenser out of the way, and then take the mounting bolts off of the old intercooler and then just slide it out. Alright, so I got the old intercooler out. I was kind of struggling there a little bit, so when you're doing that yourself, maybe get some helping hands. These were actually pretty flexible to move out of the way to get the intercooler to drop out. I was having a hard time getting that tube to pull out though, but it's out now, so I'll focus on trying to mount this guy, and then we can chuck that guy. Unless anyone wants to buy one with holes in it. And now, in order to get this AC condenser and the intercooler to fit well, I'm gonna notch out a portion of this hood latch support. I'm not really sure how much I'm gonna take out, but I'll probably go just above this notch here to start with. Take out half of it. That way the AC condenser can sit high up and the intercooler can sit high up, because I want it to sit as far up above the lower valance as I can. To get more airflow to it, but I also don't want to compromise the integrity of this structure too much. Alright, so I've trimmed this hood latch support back, and now I'll show you how I'm going to mount the AC condenser. So I've got it pushed in on the passenger side, in and up as much as I can, and then what I'll do is I'm going to drill a hole in there and use that existing top bracket on the passenger side and the driver's side, and then on the inside I'm going to have to trim these brackets in and then use a bolt as close to the AC condenser as I can. Okay, so I marked my holes on both sides for the top, and I'll drill those out now. Just test fitting my 3/8 bolt. All right, that'll be perfect. The way I'm gonna mount this is I've actually decided I'm just gonna have the 2 bolts on the top. The AC condenser doesn't really weigh that much, and these are 3/8 diameter bolts, so they're pretty hefty. I just need to pick up some spacers from the hardware store to go in between here and the core support, just because there's a bit of a gap. And then what I'll do is I'll trim this down, and that'll allow me to have room for the intercooler pipes. There just wasn't enough meat to bite in between here, because this is kind of on a ridge at the back, and then your rad is in the way. There's a bit more room on this side. I probably could do it, but I'm just gonna opt out, and I'll stay with the 2 3/8 bolts on the top, and then I'll take some of that neoprene rubber and adhere it to the back of the end of the each end of the condenser tank here, just to prevent it from vibrating. I just measured 50 mils down, and then I did a straight 45 down on each side. So I'll cut those out now, and then if I need to trim off more for the intercooler tubes, I can do that after. So I pulled out the new intercooler here. What I'm gonna do now is I'm going to cut the tops of these off, and I'll mount through here by drilling. So I'm gonna trim the tops of these 2 tabs off. And then what I'll start doing is I'll start notching these out a little bit on each side of the core support. And then we'll start some fitment. Alright, so I've cut the tabs off of both sides now. Now I'll start to do some metal work in here to cut the holes out bigger. Alright, I'm making pretty good progress here, grinding these out. Here's just a little update. I'm not gonna show you, show me grinding for an hour. This is kind of taking a while, but I'm just taking the cutoff wheel and going up and down and kind of making this curve here, just to give me a little bit more clearance. So I'm gonna go at it a bit more, and I've kind of realized I need to probably delete this center hood latch support, and then I'll keep these for now and see how the placement is, but I gotta get rid of this right now just because the intercooler needs to go in more. I've got the holes wide enough here now on the driver's and passenger side, and I've cut the bottom piece off here, and now I've realized I do need to cut these off to ensure that I can get the intercooler right up against the core support here. Alright, so I'm pretty much ready to fit the intercooler now. All 3 of these are ground down smooth. My AC condenser is mounted, and I've test fitted it a couple times. I had to retrim this a little bit higher just so I could get the intercooler a bit higher. I think the goal here is to get it as high as you can, so that way you can mount it on the core support and not hit the AC condenser. So I've drilled out my 3/8 holes for my mounting bolts, and what I've noticed is there's probably going to need to be a little bit of a spacer but behind this, because these tabs don't quite go far back enough to reach past the AC condenser. So there's going to have to be like a spacer there of some sort. So I'll put this up and mark out those holes, and then drill the holes into the core support. So I've got the intercooler mounted on the top here. I used a couple spacers behind there. It's a rubber bushing in my 3/8 bolt on both sides. I don't know if you can see that bushing. And then there's where the top of the bolt comes in. There's where it comes in back here. 2-inch bolts. Man, this thing looks beefy as heck. So a little update here. I've been at it all day. As you can see back here, the way this is pointing, it points out towards the battery tray and is hitting it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to elongate these top brackets, so that way I can slide it horizontally into the right position where I want it when I'm mounting it. And then I've been working on the lower brackets. Currently, what my plan is here is I've drilled and tapped two holes, and I'm using those brackets that I got from Canadian Tire. Here, I won't use the bolt there, but you know, that's the way it's going to sit there, just like that. And then I'm going to adhere in some of that neoprene rubber in between the intercooler and that bracket, and so I'm going to do that on the left and right hand side. So I'm just working on that now. Most of the hard cutting and fabricating is almost out of the way. I'm probably going to call her quits for today. Go get a few things at the hardware store tonight, clean up, and then we'll start again tomorrow. Just the rubber on these brackets here. Again, this is the neoprene rubber. I just cut it to fit. What I'm going to use is this 3M black super weather strip and gasket adhesive to adhere it to the metal here. Okay, and now that I've got that clamped up, I'll just let it cure. Alright, so I've slotted these holes now, so I can slide the whole intercooler left and right. And here's just a quick look at the upper mounts. I've got my 3/8 bolt, 2 washers, and then this rubber bushing on each side. And again, these are 2-inch bolts. I had to trim quite a bit off this side to make sure that the intercooler wouldn't hit the AC condenser lines on the left-hand side. And then I kind of smooth this out on the top, and then clean this up on the right-hand side, so the slots I can move my bolt left and right. So right now I've got I picked up these spacers from Lowe's and I cut them in half. They're about 15 mils in depth, and I'm going to put them behind this bolt so they can act as a spacer between the AC condenser mounts and the core support. So I'm going to pop those off, test it on the AC condenser, and then once that's good, then my intercooler lower mounts are good to go. I'll paint up all these bare metal spots and then make everything permanent. Alright, just a quick update here. I've got the intercooler now fully mounted. Both my bottom brackets, as you can see, are mounted into the lower cross member here on the core support, and they have rubber bushings on both sides. And then what I did at the back of the intercooler on each side, I adhered another piece of that weather stripping so it didn't vibrate against the core support. Did that on both sides. It's just back here. And I was taking a look with my phone camera, but I don't think I can fit the GoPro in here. There's just barely a gap on each side between the intercooler and the AC condenser, and it's slightly touching up here, but I don't think it should be a big deal. It's very stable. You know, I can't pull it in and out, and when I shake it, you know, the whole truck moves instead of it. So at this point, I think I can begin to start the tubing, and then I guess we can start to throw the grill back on. All right, I'm gonna take my new 3-inch elbow and just throw it on here snug for now with my new O-ring. Okay, I'm gonna take my new boots now. This is my Charger cooler boot, and I'll throw it on. So that way I can take the measurements for my straight piece of pipe from the intercooler over to the compressor outlet. Okay, now that I've got these boots on, I can take a measurement for my piece of straight pipe here. So I'm just going to go to the ridge of this boot, to the ridge of the charger cooler boot, and looks to be about 12. I'll do 12 and a quarter. Keep in mind I still have to roll my beads on the straight pipe. Okay, so I've got my 3-inch straight pipe here. This is aluminum tubing. It's 24 inches in length. The piece that I need is, I just measured it, it was 12 and a quarter. What you're gonna need, if you don't already pre-buy a 12-inch bead rolled end tube, and you have a tube like this, is you're gonna need a bead roller. I got this bead roller from Princess Auto. It was on sale like 150 bucks or something like that. So this is the first time we're gonna attempt this, so things might go wrong, but that's what I have the extra length for. We can try this a few times if it doesn't work out. I'm using these dies on here are 3/8 dies, so we'll see, you know, how big of a bead it forms. But of course we can adjust, you know, as we rotate it, and we'll see what the bead looks like. So it's good to have a helping partner for this, because it's a hand crank. You want to have one person hold the tube, and then the other person will crank the handle. So we'll attempt this, see how it goes. All right, so I've cut this down to length. We've got one bead rolled in the one side. We bumped it down to the 1/4 inch die. So that's the bead that it gave us. And we're cut to length. So now we'll roll the bead on this side, and then we can go test fit it on the truck. Okay, and here's our finished bead on that side, and then this side. So this side you can see is much closer to the edge than this one, just because where we started. So I can always file this one down if it's too long. So let's go test fit it. I've got the straight pipe on here. I've tightened down all 4 clamps on the couplers, just nice and tight until the springs are all the way down, and it looks pretty sweet. So now I'll get started on the driver's side, first by mounting the 24 valve intake, and then I'll start working on that 45. So before I install the 24 valve intake, I need to drill and tap a hole for my intake air temperature sensor. This is part of my Arduino sensor project where I look at air density in the manifold. So on my stock first gen intake horn, I drilled and tapped. It's a 3/8 NPT fitting. So what I'm gonna need to do is drill it up to 9/16 with this 9/16 drill bit, and then tap it with this 3/8 NPT tapered tap. Alright, so I've got my manifold air temperature sensor mounted. I don't know if you can see it, just a little bit in there. And then I've got the intake horn all cleaned out now. I just rinsed it out and let it dry for a little bit. Same with my grid heater, and then I can go and mount them. Alright, so the 24 valve intake is on now, and now we can work on the final piece, which is the 45 bend from the charger cooler to the intake. Alright, and I just relocated the oil dipstick here, and I mounted it to the throttle bracket beneath the intake horn. So you can see just right there, the bracket, I just bent it in a different position, and then put it on that 13mm stud there. My love, if you feel like I do right now, don't say you're on the run to the... Alright, we're at end of day 2 now. Might have kicked myself in the butt here by cutting this 45 a little bit too short. I cut off, I think it was 4 or 5 inches off of that side, and then I started to fit it, and you know, I'm at a gap here of like 1.5 to 2 inches, and my coupler only comes down to like here. So I might either try and make it work with the existing couplers, and if that doesn't work, then I'll probably have to get a longer coupler here. There's a local Cummins supplier that might, it's a diesel shop that might have longer silicone charger cooler couplers. So I'll try them tomorrow morning, and we'll see if they have something. Otherwise, I can try and make it work. But so far so good for end of day 2, and we'll check back in the morning. All right, so I was able to save myself here this morning. I found a place in town called Green Line that does all types of like hose fittings and stuff, and I found this 3-inch coupler. Now, although not black like I wanted it to be, it'll get the job done for now, and then I can just get a black replacement from Vibrant at a later date. Plus, I kind of like these ones with the steel rings better now after handling both the hump hose and the charger cooler type couplers. So I might change my other one out, but anyways, that's for another day. So I was able to get that, and these are 6 inches in length, and then I had to cut, it was about 2 inches or so off of the long end here, and now we can roll the beads on both ends and then get her installed. Okay, and now we've rolled the beads on the ends of the 45, and we can install it. Okay, and now we've finished installing the entire system. Now the most important step before we go for a test drive is we're gonna do a boost leak test on the entire system, and we're gonna check every single place that there's going to be charge air, including all the new boots, all the tubes, all the connections, the connection here, even some of our sensor locations, including the new intercooler, and then we'll prove the system, and then we can go for a test drive. Okay, and this is why it's important to do a boost leak check. You can hear that there. The air is already coming out, and I haven't even sprayed soap on anything yet. I found another one on the bottom of this hose, so I'm just going to tighten that up. There better be no leaks. I paid $1,300 for this thing. There we go. Alright, so I've tracked down most of the leaks and fixed most of the leaks. I'll just show you here. Go up to 30 psi. We'll fill up the system. Mind you, a valve may or may not be open, but loosen the pressure, and then that pressure holds, you know, for a few seconds here at least. And now we're buttoned back up. We've got the grill back on. I just wanted to note that the grill fits really well. It doesn't hit anywhere on the intercooler from what I can tell, as well as the front valance. It actually fit pretty well. So we've got the front of the truck buttoned back up, and now we can go for a little test rip. What I'll do is I'll make a separate video on the air density testing for the intercooler, just to take a look at the air temperatures and air density values. I might throw in a short clip of, you know, driving at the end of this video, but now we can say we're pretty much wrapped up and we're ready for a test drive. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed that video of me installing the intercooler. I'm actually really impressed with the way that's performing so far, just from my couple of test drives that I've been on. It seems to do a pretty consistent job of keeping the intake air temperatures just above ambient temperature, whether or not you're under boost conditions or not. Overall, I'm really happy that I did this upgrade, and I'd really highly recommend doing it yourself if you can. Whether or not Dura-Lite continues to make these intercoolers, I guess we'll see. I've asked them politely, hopefully, to continue making some of these for you guys. And if not, then you can always look at getting some from the junkyard from 7.3 Powerstrokes, or you can look at some of the Mishimotos, and there might be another brand available. But overall, very impressed with the Dura-Lite intercooler, and I'm definitely happy that I did that upgrade. So stay tuned for more. Up next on the table is going to be installing this exhaust housing and turbine wheel. This is a 64 mil turbine, 76 by 64 mil turbine wheel with a 12 cm exhaust housing. Right now I've got the stock 70 by 60 exhaust wheel on there, and it has a 16 cm exhaust housing. So I'm going to be doing that one today. The only thing that I didn't show on the intercooler swap video that you still need to do, and that I still need to do, is you're going to have to shorten the hood latch catch, or the hood latch safety catch here, because when the hood goes down, this will actually hit the top of the new intercooler because it's very tall. So what I'm going to have to do, and what you should do, is cut this in 2 places, shorten it, and then weld it back together. So I'm not going to show you how to do that on the video, but don't forget, it's a huge safety feature in the truck that you really shouldn't be driving on the highway unless you have this on your hood. Okay, thanks for watching, guys. Cheers.